Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, loaded up on your Good Friday. We'll check in with Derek Peterson, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Petey's been all over it with some Husker football coverage. He's also taken a roadie to Kearney. We'll see if he cried during his COVID shot. Inquiring minds want to know. There should be a Vegas line. Did Petey cry before, during, or after said COVID shot? You've had the first wave of it.
Yeah, first one wasn't too bad.
Okay, you're just trying to work out wave two?
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I've been scheduled for next weekend.
You've been scheduled next week when you are going to be in the sun down at Ole Miss.
Yeah, down in the dirty sip. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure how I'm going to figure that out. But I called them. They're like, yeah, you can just get it the second one whenever you want. I'm like, oh, hi.
Nice.
Guess we'll figure it out. But I'll put the odds. The starting line, yes, is definitely like a big underdog on the did Dr. Petey cry.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he kind of kissed his bicep when they were done.
I mean, the first one definitely it was like a sore arm for sure, but like nothing I couldn't handle. I'm a man.
Nah, good for you. And you showed up in a bro tank, and that was a smart move, man. Didn't even have to jack with the sleeves. So we'll spend some time on Husker football. Bill Moos, his name being mentioned. We'll tell you about that. Jay Moore with us from Hail Varsity and Big Red Wrap-Up. Little spring ball preview from Jay as far as what the guys are going through in pads for the first time today as they wrap up week 1 of 5. So Jay Moore this hour, Bill Doleman next hour, and then an extended interview with one of the newest Husker commits, Victor Jones. Big-time wideout. Kudos to Elijah for running that down. Victor Jones, talented wideout out of Orlando that committed yesterday. We'll chat with him around 5:20. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at HailVarsity.com and find us and follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio and at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. So Nebraska on a bit of a roll recruiting-wise. You get the Victor Jones Jr. commitment yesterday. You get the yes, I'm in from Ben Brahmer. Big-time tight end, 4-star prospect, the pride of Pierce. Him and Matt Harrion, man, keep mining the fields of Pierce for big-time tight ends. And what a number for Brahmer as a sophomore, shy of 800 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns, 5 in-state tight ends for Nebraska the last several years. Got to love that, and got to get the tight ends involved. So let's dive into Bill Moos. You have Nebraska Athletic Director reportedly on a long list of preliminary candidates for the Pac-12 Conference Commissioner job. So you have Mr. Scott being asked to exit. And let's be honest, the Pac-12 is as good as their programs are. And they've always been good in college baseball. They're phenomenal in women's basketball with Stanford. UCLA is in the Final Four. And you have Oregon that kind of carries the flag along with USC for college football. But the Pac-12 has been a far cry. And as much as I like me some Friday night Pac-12 football or Pac-12 After Dark on ESPN, where we used to watch the Pirate a lot before he left for the SEC, Pac-12's never been able to secure a TV deal, like a lucrative one that puts them on pace with the likes of the SEC and the Big Ten. We'll see where the Big Ten goes at some point as they're under new leadership with Commissioner Warren, of course, and the councils and presidents and that crew. I mean, Jim Delaney delivered a fat paycheck for the universities and athletic departments year after year for 3 decades. The Pac-12 has been pretty high-level football for a while. They're always having guys go in the first or second round of the draft. It's not that they can't and don't play ball out there. Stanford's been down. Leach left. UCLA and Chip Kelly hasn't exactly popped. Arizona's been a mess. Arizona State's pretty good with Herm. They're better than they have been. Utah and Whittingham's nice. Washington lost Chris Peterson. Oregon State seems to be kind of trending in the right direction, but it's not just your vintage Pete Carroll-led SC teams, or even Sark teams for that matter, that were, all right, they underachieved, but they were still 9-4, and they light somebody up in the Holiday Bowl.
And I'll even throw in Oregon in there up until the Marcus Mariota years. They had a 10-year stretch of, I'd call, dominance in the Pac-12. And I don't want to say they've fallen off, but they're not the same as they were. They're borderline top 25. They can have a team that jumps up into the top 10 every once in a while, but they're just not the same as they were under Chip Kelly, right?
Chip Kelly and Helfrich kind of inherited some help, and Scott was part of that staff. So, I mean, Helfrich was fine, but he had one down year, and then it was, and Lubick was part of the crew there too. So they've won games. They've played well, and they went and got Mario Cristobal, and I think he's really good, right? I mean, he's got a little bit of SEC Miami to him. That's kind of his playground, and he's done fine. So back to Bill Moos, right? What you'd be taking over with the Pac-12. Is it fixable? Absolutely. It is. And they'd be smart to go get Bill Moos. Bill Moos is a guy that transformed Oregon, all right? Bill Moos is a guy that really helped Oregon take that next step with the Joey Harrington years. You had the wardrobe options that got some notice by younger fans. And by the way, they won football games, right? I know Mike Bellotti was the athletic director after he retired as head coach when Chip Kelly took over. But Oregon and Bill Moos and Phil Knight all kind of got on the same page and really helped brand Oregon as an it school, and then they were right there. They're kind of, and I hate saying this, and it's a compliment, but they're kind of like the Atlanta Braves, where they're damn good every year, but they don't have the titles to back up the successful run, right? You played for some championships, you didn't win one. And Oregon's trying to get back there. You go get Bill Moos if you're the Pac-12, you got a guy who knows how to communicate, knows how to wheel and deal. And everywhere he's been successful. He's a part of the rebuild right now in Lincoln, and he's been pretty adamant about that between football and basketball. Went to Washington State, brought in the Pirate, and by year 4, they're winning double-digit games until Leach left. And then Nebraska went out there and, through a search firm, was able to get Moos here. So if I were to put money down, I think the West Coast Conference Commissioner, Gloria Nevarez, is going to get a really strong look. That's where Gonzaga's at. That's where St. Mary's is at. Now, what type of football background? Because that's how you're going to make your money. That's how you're going to command your dollars. That's how you're going to get your universities and athletic departments paid. Nevarez is a very, very smart commissioner, and she has commissioner experience. Oliver Luck, of course, Andrew's dad, was the athletic director at West Virginia and also the XFL. He's a phenomenal candidate. But Moos mentioned with these names here, and Moos responded to the Journal-Star, flattered to be mentioned, but merely media speculation. I've not been contacted. There's 10 to 12 candidates here. We'll chat with Bill Doleman in less than an hour, get his take on things, because Bill knows the way the athletic department / what do you need in the commissioner game is played, because he spent years doing administration on top of sportscasting. So anxious to get his take. Listen, you can do a lot worse than Bill Moos. If push came to shove, I think Bill Moos wants to stay here in Lincoln. Not that a commissioner job is even something you bat an eye at. And if you're offered it, yes, you take it. But I think when push comes to shove, I think Bill Moos wants to see this thing through. I think he wants that facility built. I think he wants to see football in a championship game, and he wants to see the Nebraska basketball program in an NCAA tournament game, because Bill Moos, man, his legacy is pretty bulletproof at Oregon. It's very impressive to get Leach and Washington State winning and rebuilt, his alma mater, and then to come to Lincoln and get Nebraska flipped around eventually, to be able to get Frost, to be able to get Hoiberg. I mean, he's been a big fish hire. And now you want to see it through to where you're winning games and you want to see your team in contention for championships, and it's been a slow burn.
Yeah, to me, in an ideal world, Bill Moos should say thanks, but no thanks to the Pac-12, and then write a very strong letter of recommendation for Kevin Warren. Let's get Kevin Warren hired by the Pac-12. but in all seriousness,
kind of like, my name's Barry, and this I-course guy will do you well. It's been working for me for years. I can't get rid of him.
So that's what I'm crossing my fingers for. But in all seriousness, the way I see it, Bill Moos is 70 years old. He's only 5 years younger than Barry Alvarez. So
how much longer does he want to go? Does he want to take on a Pac-12 job? Does he have time in his career? Mm-hmm. He's a good-looking 70. He doesn't look 70. And the other part of this, too, I mean, Bill's set to make about $3.6 million here between now and 2022 when his contract expires.
Yeah, the question to me is, does he ride out these last 2 years into retirement? Does he maybe re-sign a new contract and finish his years at Nebraska? Or does he go over to be the Pac-12 commissioner and finish his years there, even though, I mean, do you think the Pac-12 is really looking for a guy that's going to be with them 5-6 years? I don't know. Are they looking for stability?
Yes, they're looking for stability. They're looking for experience, and no one knows the Pac-12 like Bill Moos. He's your most experienced candidate right now, and he's done it at two different spots. So he knows the lay of the land. I think Oliver Luck's a little younger and has been in some pretty big-time circles. So we'll see if Bill Moos's name stays hot with this opening, but you need somebody of Moos's caliber to get it done. The other thing, too, is, I mean, you've got, and again, not to beat this horse here, but if you're Bill Moos, you want to go see your kids and your head coach perform well down in Norman with that whole fiasco that there's a lot of crap thrown at Moos, and this wasn't on him. I mean, he's excited for moments of celebration that honor the game of the century. There's no way he wanted out of this thing. And he wants to see the fan base get back in. When it comes to Nebraska, really good article by Tom Chattel, and the topic of humble pie. And this came out yesterday. We didn't quite get to it, but I look at what Nebraska was able to do to help kind of continue and sustain success. What type of tweaks and adjustments do you make as a head coach for your football program, and when do you make them? Okay, so 2 examples of guys making changes when you're rolling or you're just a step away from championship. Nick Saban, what did he do? He went from your game manager, drop back pro-style quarterback to hiring Lane Kiffin to getting Tua, right? He went for the mobile quarterback with Tua and Jalen Hurts, and that turned Bama from really, really, really great to unbeatable and championship level, okay? Because they had their own dose of medicine that was about the only way you could beat Alabama's defense, was with the mobile quarterback, Johnny Football, or Cam Newton. So Saban's already kind of at the mountaintop, winning 11, 12 games, playing for and winning championships, and he tweaks his offense to more of a spread, mobile quarterback look versus name some of the managers that had great offensive line and I-backs that were good players. A.J. Mccarron.
That's the number one thing I was thinking of.
So the A.J. Mccarron to the Tua.
Greg McElroy.
Right. And no knock. I mean, they're great. They won and brought Bama championships. Tom Osborne switched from a kind of a pro-style passing attack, did so, and went to Turner Gill and the option look, and that was what allowed Nebraska to compete and beat the Oklahomas and play for championships. So Osborne did that in the late 70s. And then again in the early 90s, shifting his defense from that 5-2 to a 4-3, where you just put so much team speed on the field that could stop the run. You had to adjust to just the one-back offenses where you had 3 wideouts, and they just got your linebackers in a whole hell of a lot of trouble. The University of Washington, the University of Miami, Colorado, they all shifted or were in kind of a 3-set wide receiver, one-back set, and Nebraska had to counter defensively. They did, and they did extremely well with their offense, with their defense, and winning. Scott Frost's shift right now is not only practice style, but adjusting to the Big Ten, not the Big Ten adjusting to Nebraska. And what the adjustment looks like is happening is more. Nebraska's going to run the football, but how do they run the football, right? And the way they run the football, hopefully, is more downhill, more I-back or running back centric versus your quarterback run game. And the other part of this thing, too, is just what you're going to be able to get with your practices. It sounds boring to talk about with practices, but that's okay. You get so good fundamentally, you're not hurting yourself with penalties or turnovers or missteps. You win a lot more games, special teams, right? We'll get into some of the rushing thoughts from Derek Peterson of Hail Varsity. That's next. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Great to be with you on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. 1 hour away, new recruit for Nebraska football, Victor Jones Jr. Bill Doleman coming up. Jay Moore on the way. Dr. Petey is in. Derek Peterson from HailVarsity.com and magazine at Dr. Petey HV. Tears or no tears after the shot, my friend?
What's up, man? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Now, yes or no on tears? Were there tears after the injection?
Oh, were there tears? No, of course not. No, it's just a little shot.
Okay, so
I'm not one of those people that was real big on. I wasn't fearful of shots or vaccines when I was a kid.
Good. That's awesome. And me being kind of a goofball, I said, if it's going to be a shot, make sure it's Cuervo.
The good kind.
Yes, the good kind.
Oh, not Cuervo. No, not Cuervo.
So what are you going with if we're talking about alternative shots?
I mean, we're not doing tequila.
Okay. All right.
Tequila is the worst.
Uh-huh. We'll move on. Tequila's okay. Tequila's all right. So with Nebraska football, Derek, and it's been an interesting week, and it's, can't wait to continue to cover this team and see some of the strides they make this season, and then it culminate on football Saturday, May 1st. You've done some really awesome work with your stories and specifically tempo, and that was pretty fascinating to hear Greg Austin talk about with some of the adjustments. When you think of Nebraska's just offense in general, what comes to mind for you first? Is it, man, they've got so much potential, or man, they're in their own way? What's the immediate image in your mind?
Well, this is spring, and spring is the time for unbridled optimism, right? So I'm kind of in that phase right now, looking at potential and things like that. I mean, yeah, I was with you. It was really interesting to hear Greg Austin talk about there's been more of an emphasis on detail as opposed to tempo. Because, we all heard the same things through the first couple of years where it was a lot of the instruction happens after practice as opposed to, if somebody runs the wrong route or somebody kind of misses a read or something during a play, you're not hearing about it. You're not getting that kind of instruction sort of after the play. It's in the film room after practice is over. And, to hear them kind of switch to, we're focused on details. We're focused on technique right now. It was interesting. It'll be interesting to see what kind of benefit that has. Because, really just with everything that we heard this week, that was the big emphasis with them was detail. Sean Beckton talked about it. Travis Fisher talked about it. Eric Chenander talked about it. They want to be detailed. And so when we're talking about potential versus like, are they in their way? Like, they do have a lot of potential. We really like the secondary. We really like sort of the talents they have at wide receiver. We really like the talents they have at tight end and running back and things like that. And they have a lot of potential. And, you start getting to that potential by being a little bit more detailed. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of what comes of that.
Derek Peterson's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Derek, when you talk about potential, who do you think has more potential in this offense? Is it the receiver room or is it the running back room?
Well, you guys know me. I'm card-carrying member of the Savion Morrison fan club.
Not only are you a member, you are the president.
I am the president, yes, sir. But wide receiver is really interesting. Because Samori Toure in the slot is really interesting. I'm outside. There's a train going by, so I apologize if it gets really loud.
No worries.
Toure in the slot is really interesting. And then, so if you get Toure productive in the slot, you get Omar Manning back, Xavier Betts takes a step, Alante Brown takes a step. They got so many pieces at wide receiver that you just start, you can't help but feel like, okay, if things come together, like, it'll be fine, okay? But when we talk about tight ends needing to be really good, or their tight end room being one of the best in the country, sometimes when we talk about that, it's because, like, oh, well, those guys need to be to sort of make up for the wide receivers. Greg Smith and I talked about this on my podcast this week. Like, it's not outside the realm of possibility that the wide receiver room is really good because, we can see the pieces. Everybody likes the pieces. And they've got guys that sort of, they look the part. It's just a matter of they need to be on the field. And everybody that I've talked to has said that Samori Toure is going to be a legitimate dude. If not for COVID, he probably would have been in the NFL draft right now. Nebraska's a beneficiary of that. And so, we'll see. I'm curious what Marquise Stepp looks like. We'll get to talk to Brian Held next week in the running back room, but there's just not a lot of on-field experience with the running back room. But you look at the wide receiver group, and, like, there's guys that have done it at a college, at an FCS, or at a JUCO level. I don't think you're, drunk on Kool-Aid if you're like, hey, this room has potential.
No, it's got talent in the room. You want to see the talent, A, used, or B, not just used, but used till someone stops it. And you haven't even seen kind of the same crew of receivers. I mean, you just saw so many different personnel groupings, which is fine, but you just didn't get a ton of production, or if you did have some production, it was just fleeting. It was momentary, and then you didn't see that stacked. Let's talk about the stat that makes Nebraska fans kind of stare longingly with your column, and that's number 98 in the country when it comes to explosive pass plays. Nebraska's top 30 in a lot of great rushing numbers, but to balance out on offense, they need more explosive plays passing. Wideouts, again, to that talent can be really good. Let's go to the quarterback and Adrian. What do you pin? What's your explanation? What do you pin it on as far as the lack of explosiveness in the passing game? Is it dudes not getting open? Is it offensive line? Is it a dinged quarterback? Is it a quarterback that's dealing with confidence issues? I mean, if you were to give me reason number one, they've been so bad downfield, what is it?
It's a combination of all that. Part of it, and I said this the second the coaching staff got here with the way that they recruited the wide receivers. There was a lot of 5'10" guys and not a lot of guys that look like Omar Manning or Samori Toure. Right. And they kind of had it worked at UCF. That was a different playing field that they were kind of working on in the American Athletic Conference. And like, to their credit, they've adjusted. But like with the downfield stuff, they've got Omar now, they've got Samori Toure now, they've got Xavier Betts. You just need guys to throw it to like that. That's why you saw Austin Allen kind of come on so strong last year, is because he sort of filled that need. But I mean, it's like everything. It's just a combination of a lot of factors. Like, did it look like Adrian maybe was struggling a little bit with confidence last season? Yeah. Does he need more time? Yeah. I mean, Greg Austin said it this week. The offensive line didn't live up to the standard that they set for themselves last season. That's something that they're kind of working on. Wide receivers were open. Sometimes Adrian just didn't have time to get it to him. And so, like, it's a combination of a lot of things. And, like, that's what the coaching staff says. I know people don't like to hear it, but it's just, and this goes back to the detail thing. It's just, a little detail here and there kind of makes everything work. When you're talking about, a team of 11 guys on the field, everybody has to be doing their job. And so, I think it can be better in terms of the explosive pass play. I think it can be better. Like a lot of what we've talked about, they've got to prove it on the field, but I think they have the pieces to do it. And so to hear them kind of talk about, we're working on the detail in practice, we're slowing it down a little bit, we're focused on this and that. And then to hear, like Cam Jurgens brought up explosive plays, kind of unprompted on Monday, and said that's a big emphasis for the offense, is finding some more explosives. I sort of took that as like, this is something that's been said by the coaching staff a lot, and these guys are regurgitating it kind of when they get up in front of the media. That's a good thing for them to sort of be like, yep, this is what we need to work on. This is where we're at. This is what we got to work on. They're saying all the right things, which is kind of what I said on my podcast. I'm liking what I'm hearing from them. There's an acknowledgement of sort of where they've fallen short, and there are some kind of like actionable steps that they've sort of laid out in how they're going to address things. It's
been emphasized by coaches, players get it. It seems like there's been kind of a reckoning, not only from the assistants and the head coach, but it's trickled down to the players, and it's a same page message. And you got to see what you're hearing, though, right? And you get a chance to do that in spring, and then hopefully in the fall if you're a Nebraska fan. Derek Peterson's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine, at Dr. PDHV on Twitter. Derek, before we go, Kevin Durant fined $50,000 by the NBA. Your reaction to that with his interaction with Rappaport? Too much, not enough, just right, or overblown?
As somebody that was hurt by Kevin Durant leaving Oklahoma City, and somebody who has sort of judged Kevin Durant harshly in the past, none of the language was good. Neither guy looked great.
Nope.
In the aftermath. But one thing I will say, and this is not to excuse what Kevin Durant said, I don't want it to come off like that. One thing I will say is, like, sometimes we got to just take a step back and think, like, hey, this athlete is a person just as well as they are an athlete. Mm-hmm. And it's not like this is not a vessel for entertainment for me. This is a person. And, Kevin Durant takes his fair share of criticism. Again, like, the language that he used was bad, and it's not language that I want to use or want, like, friends of mine to use. But, like, Kevin Durant is a person that doesn't get treated like a person, and sometimes people break with that. So,
no, good take there, and the interaction. Rappaport is a guy that was all over Durant. And KD'd had enough. Yeah, KD'd had enough, and KD's been known to have thin skin, and his language was no bueno, and there's the heart of your fine right there. Well, you have a good holiday weekend, Dr. Petey. We'll get caught up next week. Good to see you down at practice, bud.
You too, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, appreciate you. Good to see him. Good stuff. Check that out, HailVarsity.com. With Derek Peterson, great coverage this week. Jay Moore's up next on Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red, an NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Talk some spring football. Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore with us. His podcast, More to It. Find him on Twitter at JMoore44. Bird, you're doing some yard work. You're not doing some golf. I mean, God bless you if you try and battle this wind today.
Yeah, no, I'm getting some yard work done. Hopefully I'll get out tomorrow morning when it's a little calmer. So, yeah, just get some much needed yard work done. Love being outside, so it's just that time of year. So, gotta get cleaned up, get everything looking nice, and get ready for some warm weather. That
is about right. What were your takeaways this week with Nebraska as they got spring football underway between what Coach Frost had to say and your buddy Greg Austin? It sounded like there's some tweaks to practice that may help the offense.
Yeah, I mean, something needs to be tweaked, right? Because it hasn't gone the way we wanted it to the last few years. So, they're going into year 4, and they have yet to have a winning season. They have yet to, kind of get going, get this high-potent offense. I know there's some issues with, some younger players and whatnot, and you got to get the right pieces sometimes. But this is they'd be crazy not to, right? I don't know what's the famous quote about insanity or doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, that's you got to change and tweak some stuff to get going, because it's not obviously where that staff wants things to be and where we want it to be and that the state wants to be. We want it's not like we're asking for national championships. I mean, that'd be great, but let's get back to winning football and smart football and fundamentally sound football, where you're beating the teams you're supposed to beat, and you're hanging into the teams that you might be dogs to, and you're playing in bowl games, and you're fighting for the west side of the conference year in and year out, instead of, you're just kind of playing for pride, with a few games left in the season, and you're maybe hoping you can squeak out a bowl game. So, yeah, they definitely need to change some things up.
Jay, I was interested on the tempo topic, and it sounds like the tempo is being slowed. Greg Austin talked about holding on to blocks a little longer and the fatigue factor that sets in. If you made a mistake or you were going against somebody that had a false start, 9 times out of 10, was that due to fatigue or just some sort of mental lapse? Tell me how and why mistakes like that are supposed to be the fundamentals you work on since you start playing football have happened so much. I mean, what do you chalk it up to?
Yeah, I think it could be fatigue. That's definitely one thing. That's you're tired and you've been going for how many snaps into a game. That's your mind kind of stops working. But also I think that links to how you practice, because you're making those mistakes in practice. You're probably doing. If you're making those mistakes in the game, you're probably doing it in practice. So, you gotta. That's where it starts. You gotta have perfect practices as much as possible, because then you can start having, realistic expectations of playing better in the games. Because if you're having sloppy practices, you just don't go out there on Saturdays and say, hey, we looked like garbage, Monday through Thursday. I expect us to play well. No, it doesn't work that way. So I think that's where first and foremost it's got to start. But yeah, I mean, being fatigued. You just get sloppy. You just don't use your hands and your feet as well, and then you just kind of don't think as well. But that's that comes with hopefully they tweak some stuff this off season if they're talking about fatigue, and it's not about always lifting. I mean, you always want to have guys who can lift a ton of weight. That's great, but I always tell people weights don't fight back, right? I want a guy that's able to be strong, but also can be strong for 90 plays and have that, and they have that quit, and they have that energy, and they have the stamina to bring that power and that physicality for much longer. So that's an equation that they're trying to get figured out as well. So but yeah, fatigue's always a little bit. You're gonna have it. You're not gonna have perfect. You'd like to have perfect plays and perfect games and stuff like that, but sometimes they have scholarship players too, and you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, make sure they don't happen again. And if you have a couple failed plays, out of 70-some snaps, that's okay sometimes. You have 68 pluses and 2 minuses. That's a pretty dang good game. So, hopefully those minuses don't come at key times, and you learn from those mistakes and move on.
Jay, earlier this week, Greg Austin said one of the fundamentals he wants to be focusing on is blocking through the whistle for his offensive line. As somebody who went up against offensive linemen, what exactly does that mean? I mean, I get what it means, like holding on your block through the whole time, but like, as a defensive lineman, what's it like to block against a guy who blocks through the whistle as opposed to a guy who doesn't?
Yeah, it's annoying, but that's why as a defensive lineman, you're going against guys like that. That's when you got to be ready to bring it and battle with them for 4 quarters, and you got that defensive lineman. You got to play with really good technique. That's why you got to have a good pad level, and you got to get rid of blocks as a defensive lineman. You got to play with your hands, and you got to get rid of those blocks and go make a play and get him on the ground and get him off you, because once he's off you, he can't really. I mean, he can come back, but it's tough. 300-pound linemen, 325-pound linemen. Once they kind of get off you, they're hard to get back on you, just because they're big and they're not the most athletic people in the world. So, that's the biggest thing is defensive linemen using their hands. But no, you got to have that mentality that you're going to come and you're not stopping. That's just bringing a little more nastiness. That's all it is. It's just playing with a little more edge and a little more fire, and just playing a little more nasty, and they could definitely use some more of that up front.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, Hail Varsity Radio, at JMoore44 on Twitter, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay, a thought here as we switch over to the NFL. Is there a quarterback that you like in this draft? Your team, the Niners, have traded and done some wheeling and dealing to get that 3rd pick overall. Is there a quarterback you think fits best with Shanahan?
Oh, man, it's tough. He's had... and you look back when he was successful with, the Falcons as OC, he had Matt Ryan. Mm-hmm. So obviously that can work. I think Shanahan's really a bright mind, and he can use about anybody, to be honest. But it's just realistically, you look at who's, sitting at 3. Is Trevor Lawrence going to be left? Do you go for, do you go for Justin Fields? Do you go for, I don't know about the kid out of North Dakota State. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to draft stuff, but to be honest, but I think, they got an interesting move. Unless they're trying to get someone else. There's some good D linemen in this draft again, and I know they lost a few guys through free agency the last couple of years. So maybe try to snag one. Maybe try to deal Garoppolo and I don't know, make a move for another QB. We'll see, but I think they're Shanahan and Lynch know what they're doing. So QB wise, I just don't know if those guys are maybe Fields is around. I don't know, but I think it could work. I think Fields could work there. I think Shanahan can make something with that and kind of get a dual threat action going on with in that offense.
Jay, we'll get caught up next week. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Yep, you got it. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff from Jay Moore. He will not blow away. And remember, weights don't hit back. So keep an eye on San Fran, what they do. Should be interesting. We'll wind down this first hour. Bill Doleman's on the way. And one of the newest commits for Nebraska football 2022. Commit number 2, wideout from Orlando, Victor Jones Jr. An extended sit-down with him at 5:20. Hail Varsity. Great to be with you on Good Friday. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. We'll spend some time with Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, 10 minutes away, NBC Sports. Bill's done a lot of college basketball over the years and covered the likes of Roy Williams and Bill Self and Porter Mosier, and the Final Four is tomorrow on ESPN Lincoln. So we'll get some basketball thoughts, and of course Bill's going to dive into spring football. He'll predict how Nebraska will be better offensively. And this whole attention to detail thing. It sounds boring, right? And it's a little bit new narrative because it's so meat and potatoes focused. That's how you're going to win in the Big Ten. This moment in motivation and someone telling you it's okay to be boring. Picture your junior high PE teacher with the whistle around his neck, the bike shorts on, and the socks pulled up to his knees. I give you Tom Allen of Indiana, as the Hoosiers caught him saying, "Keep after it, men," and Indiana was really talented in football last season.
Make sure you finish well. All right, that's the key. All right? How many guys, this is your first full spring practices? Raise your hand. Yeah, that's over half. Okay? Didn't have it last year. All right? So the guys that hadn't been here beyond that, it's your first time going through full spring of 15 practices. Okay? It can be long. It can be tough. All right? That's where you have to embrace the boredom of consistency. You have to. All right? But it's hard to do that. Why is that hard? To embrace the boredom of consistency. Why is that hard?
It's tiring.
Yeah, because you get mentally weary. You get physically weary. And the people that can't handle that, okay, they fall off. They can't push through. They're not mentally tough enough. They're not physically tough enough. All right? Because things are going to happen. You're not going to feel a certain way every day. But those that can do that and can embrace it, and that word embrace is critical, you separate yourself as a coach and as a player and as an individual in this life. That's a fact. That's the truth. And when you're chasing greatness, as things like this go along, there starts becoming a gap between you and the other guys. All right? Just finished opportunity number 10. Got 11 on Saturday. Critical that we have a great Saturday. We'll explain to you how that's going to look later. All right? Here's the key. Finish. And how you're taking care of yourselves, how you're studying film. All right? We're still putting stuff in. That goal line period was brand new. All right? Embrace the boredom of consistency.
Elijah, you're putting eye black on right now.
Oh, I'm so ready. I'm ready to run through I always wonder with those coaches, though, like how much of that is just off the top of their head, and how much did they like sit down the night before and like write it out? And
that's him.
That's just who he is.
That's him. No one's that great of an actor. Not Pacino. Not De Niro. All right.
What about Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks is phenomenal, and he can deliver something like that, but that's to his credit as an actor. Allen's your fired up guy you want to play for. And if he thinks you're a good football player, that means the world to you. And he lays it out. He gives you the why right there. Got to finish. Nebraska's still trying to do that. We'll see if this spring helps make it more of a reality in the fall. Bill Doleman coming up. Victor Jones Jr., new recruit on the way. Next hour with Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And a reminder, the Championship Monday, we were at Longwell's Roadshow Monday, 4 to 6. Hail Varsity, we're live. And again, come on down, see us, and then stick around for the title game. Your chance at Chris Stapleton tickets, Salt Dog tickets, Jet Splash gift cards, restaurant gift cards, the grand prize. Look, it ain't easy to get in because of limited capacity to see Major League Baseball. We have a chance to get you a 4-pack of home game seats to the Royals this 2021 season. So get on down to Longwell's. Plenty of beer on tap, great eats. I'm going to get a lot of wings. And, of course, the Megatron screen. We were there the last time we got to see a national champion crowned. Come on down, do it all again with us.
Do you know, am I eligible for the Chris Stapleton tickets even though I work here?
No, absolutely not. You are not. Bill Doleman might be eligible if he drives in from Donkeyland. We welcome in the Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. Bill Doleman with us at Bill Doleman on Twitter. Billy D, how's your Friday?
Well, the weather is perfect on this Good Friday out here in Colorado, which is not too unusual. I understand that you guys are having one of the 5 or 6 nice days a year outside of the wind in Lincoln. So it sounds like it's a good Friday for everybody. It
is. And yes, the wind is phenomenal if I'm teeing off with it at my back. So otherwise, no, it's not great wind, but it's sunny and warm, and some warm feelings this time of year with spring football as Scott Frost met the media and we had a chance to see coaches again, not via Zoom either, and it was great. And, Bill, you've been around a million spring football seasons, and you know that it is an optimistic time, and actions eventually got to match words. But, I think there's been some soul searching here by staff, by players, and by the head coach.
Well, I think that you have to do that, and I think that maybe that's a sign of an understanding of the task ahead. Also, a sign of maturity that you may not know everything, even though you think you might know everything, and that you might have to go through some changes. Now, will they be major wholesale changes? I doubt that Scott's in the process of doing anything like that. But I think if you at least acknowledge that we need to make some not changes in the way we do things, then that's a good thing. I think Tom did that. I think probably 2 or 3 major shifts that I can recall. One would be going from the basically a pass pro style offense back in the 70s with Ferragamo and Hum and Terry Luck and Randy Garcia and all those guys, to the option with Turner, knowing that you had to make a significant change, and that was one of the biggest changes probably anybody has ever made in the history of college football, and it turned out pretty well for 20 years. Then you had to change to the 4-3 defense and going much faster with the Ed Stewarts and where you had the speed on defense, and you also had an attitude on defense that went with it. So Tom, and then just the way they went about their business, that was probably more behind the scenes than what you saw in the field. But Tom was willing to change and to adapt, and I think maybe Scott understands that going into what is this, his 4th or 14th season, as the head coach.
Bill Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Bill, a thought here. You've covered a lot of college football when it comes to the Big 8 and the Big 12. And, how do you remember Roy Williams? I remember 3 titles at Carolina. I remember some near misses at at Kansas, I should say, where he was right there. And any interactions with Roy? I'm sure you got to sit down with him.
I had a feeling you were going to ask me, and so I thought, maybe the best way to say it would be Roy Williams was a good basketball coach.
Okay. That's it?
He had a lot of success at Kansas and a lot of success at North Carolina.
Okay. We can go a little deeper, brother, or is it too soon to unleash the fury?
I'm just a little emotional about the whole thing. That hopefully I can overcome it. That he's moved on to retirement. But look, he had great success at Kansas when nobody really thought that they could after Larry Brown, and so congratulations to that. There are just a couple of things that the leaving Kansas or the staying at Kansas or whatever he did with Kansas and North Carolina a couple of times was just really, really odd. And the whole poor old Roy thing was just kind of an odd, act. But, wearing the Kansas tie to the Carolina press conference but he had a tremendous career and at 2 different institutions that really had a lot of pressure with a lot of tradition upon them. And he's had a Hall of Fame career. And I'm a little surprised to see him go out at this point, although he said, I'm not the guy for the job anymore. That may be the poor old Roy again. But, I thought maybe that after this challenging season that there might be one more go-around to see if they could at least go a little further in the NCAA tournament. I don't think it's a program that's going to flirt with the national title under him where it is right now. And he certainly acknowledges that it's, I think, a new era of college basketball, and with all the the transitions and the transfers and everything that's going on, maybe for a guy who's 70 who did it his way for so long, it just is a lot to keep up with at this stage, and it is time for new blood to take over that program, although whoever takes over that program will bleed Carolina blue.
Yeah, Carolina Mafia is going to go with one of their own. They always do, and we'll see if it's not that far removed. 2017, Carolina cut the nets down and won a championship, but do you think it's just today's college era that drove him out?
Well, I don't think I do think being 70, he's had a hell of a career, and maybe he sees the writing on the wall. But keeping up with the with the transfers and the guys, like the name escapes me, the kid at Duke earlier this year, got hurt and said, you know what, I'm just going to shut it down and declare for the NBA draft in February. And it's like, the days of guys being around for 3 years, let alone 4. I mean, they're just really, really long gone. And I think, adapting to that and the transfer portals, I mean, I don't think Roy Williams is necessarily alone in that regard and feeling, that this is just a lot to keep up with. And maybe this is a generation that my way is just not going to play. And not that he's, the Bob Knight of, a Bob Knight type coach that probably wouldn't play at all in this era, but it is a different day. And for a guy who's 70 and done everything that he's been able to do, it's just, I just think that it's probably a lot. And I think you're going to see a lot of coaches that, that are going to say, this is just too much anymore. And I'm not prepared for it. And you might see, maybe you see more Mike Woodsons and, other guys from the NBA, Juwan Howard's coming, back into the college ranks because the college game is going to become much more like the NBA, not just in style of play, which we see all the time. And we see that with Nebraska, but the whole business aspect of college basketball and college sports in general at that level, how you manage players, their egos and their people is really going to come into play. It's just not the way it was 10 years ago.
Bill, we'll get back to basketball in a second. I need to get your take on the Pac-12 commissioner gig. Bill Moos's name on a longer list, but he's flattered by the mention, but he's not been contacted about it. Oliver Luck, also a name you hear. The administrative side, the TV side. And, what does the Pac-12 need to do? And would Bill Moos be the right guy? I know Bill's 70. I think he's a young 70, and he knows that conference.
Yeah, I think it's I read the articles out of the San Jose papers yesterday and the L.A. and with Sacramento, wherever else there were. And it just sounds like somebody throwing names out there as possibilities. And I saw today that Bill Moos hasn't been contacted. I would be surprised if they would, go in that direction. Now, we just got done talking about Roy Williams being 70 and, maybe the whole game, not just the game of basketball, but the whole thing has passed him by. I think Bill Moos gets the game at hand, administratively, but they're going to look for somebody that is an L.A., San Francisco type, a California guy, who's probably, an up-and-comer maybe in television. Oliver Luck's name seems to come up for every big administrative job that there is. But I could see them going, to somebody who was perhaps in television or even in entertainment in some way, shape, or another, that is going to shape the way they go with their media strategy over the next 10 years because the last 10 years have not been very good. I get the Pac-12 network out here in Denver, and I don't know anybody else that even mentions it. Whereas I know in Nebraska, people pretty religiously watch the Big Ten network. Yeah. But the Pac-12 network, I'm not going to call it a disaster, but I just don't know if it has anybody who watches it, and that has not been well played as well as Jim Delaney set out the Big Ten network, or even, quite frankly, even as well as the Mountain West network that I worked for 12 years ago. Was laid out. I think we had greater success in what our mission was than what the Pac-12 network has done, and they're going to need somebody to really give that a revamping if they're going to make that thing work.
Yeah, Bill, the TV deal is going to be instrumental to whoever gets this next commissioner gig for the Pac-12 because, especially in a year like this, college sports is really all about that money, and that's kind of where I want to go next, to the Supreme Court, with the name, image, and likeness going through the Supreme Court, NCAA, saying people like watching amateur athletes because they're amateur, if that makes any sense at all. But, Bill, have you been following that Supreme Court case at all, and what's your take on it?
Just like everybody else, I think that was surprised to hear that Clarence Thomas spoke up, because he never asked questions at the Supreme Court, but he's an incredibly bright and brilliant man. But I think that's a huge thing. And what you had some players. I was one of the 3 players that met with the NCAA this week, and you'd think that there would have been 30 players that would have met with the NCAA, and maybe there is much more in-depth conversations to take place after the NCAA tournament. But I think that's a huge thing, and I think we are well beyond amateur athletics when it comes to Division I athletics. I would expect that question that he asked Thomas about why are coaches' salaries as high as they are, that has to really start to resonate with players when you've got guys, making $5, $6, $7, $9, $11 million a year, and they're not getting a piece of the pie anymore, and at all. I shouldn't say anymore at all. I think that's going to resonate. I think that question was really powerful in the way that it was presented, in the form that it was presented. And I've said this for a long time. I think Nebraska, as I have followed this, has been at the forefront, maybe more so than anybody else in the country. And, I think players, athletes, though, as much as they want, need to realize that whatever they get, somebody's going to come for it, meaning the government. I mean, you're going to have some real issues when it comes to taxes on not just the money that they make on their name, image, and likeness, but they're going to come for scholarships. They're going to come for all the other benefits that go with being a collegiate student athlete. So, all parties need to really tread on this carefully, even though I think we're going in the direction that players are going to start to get paid in one way or the other. But then you also have to say, look, this just can't be about football and men's basketball. I mean, a Nebraska volleyball player, has an opportunity to do extremely well in the Lincoln and Omaha and Midwest market, as opposed to other places. So this is more than just about, those two, big money makers. When you've got, female athletes in other sports, UConn women's basketball, it's a really big issue that's going to probably come to a head a lot sooner than we realize. And they're going to have some right answers right away.
Bill, about 90 seconds, quick take on Bill Self's lifetime contract and Porter Moser to OU.
Well, I think last week we talked about Oklahoma a little bit, and I think as soon as I hung up, I thought, oh, my God, Porter Moser's the guy for that gig. We talked, I threw out Mark Turgeon and a couple other people. But I thought, oh, my God, Porter Moser, I think, would be the perfect fit. And sure enough, that's kind of what's come to fruition. He was kind of sheepish in the last couple of days about this is my, how they always say, this is my job and this is what I'm focused on. Well, you knew then he was going someplace. And the only 2 places that would have made sense really were Indiana, but I think it's a great fit for Oklahoma to have him come on board. It's another, I think, home run hire for Joe Castiglione, who rarely misses on anything. And then what was my other
Bill Self lifetime contract?
Bill Self, good on Bill Self. He's a great coach, great guy. I've read the article about his lifetime deal and all of that, and then at the very bottom it says the NCAA has yet to hand out punishments in a scandal involving payments to players from like 5 years ago. That still mystifies me, not necessarily in regard to Bill Self, but just all of college basketball, that this just continues to get pushed down the road further and further and further, and good on Self to get his while he can. And he's a perfect fit for Kansas, so good on him.
Bill, have a great holiday weekend, man. Thanks for jumping on. Always great to spend some time with you. And who do you got Monday? Who do you think gets to Monday? Who do you got Monday? About 10 seconds.
I just filled out my bracket, and I'm feeling really good about it. And I would have put Houston in my Final Four, not UCLA.
Okay.
But I would have. But I say Baylor beats Gonzaga.
Okay.
Wow.
Billy D's going with the Bears. All right. Bill, take care, brother. Talk to you soon.
See ya. Go Big Red. Go Option.
All right. Go Option. I love it. We'll talk new recruit for Nebraska, Victor Jones, wideout from Orlando, next to Varsity Radio.
And we're back.
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Standout wide receiver from Orlando and the second commit for Nebraska football 2022, Victor Jones, with us. Victor, thanks for jumping on. How's your day going?
We're going pretty well. I'm getting a lot of love from the Nebraska fans on Twitter and stuff like that. So, I definitely feel welcome.
What's the craziest thing you've seen on Twitter?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, it's just mainly just people posting Nebraska pictures or videos or gifts or anything like that, and welcoming me to Lincoln, Nebraska, and the establishment and the university and stuff like that. So it's not really crazy, but it definitely makes me feel warm and welcome.
Victor, let's spend a little bit of time on just your relationship with Coach Frost and how far back that goes. You're a local guy in Orlando. Coach Frost and his staff did amazing work down in Orlando. And how did you guys kind of get on each other's radar?
Well, my freshman year, he was about to leave UCF, but I guess he kind of just sent somebody over to my high school, and they offered me my first scholarship in high school. And when he left UCF the next year, he kind of just offered me again when he got back to Nebraska. So it's kind of like he was staying consistent with me, and he really believed that I was one of the guys that he really wanted on his team. So it really made me feel like I was really wanted by him and whatever staff he was with.
Talking with Victor Jones here on Hail Varsity Radio. He's a three-star from down in Orlando, class of 2022, the second Husker commitment in the class of 2022. And Victor, what do you see your role in this Husker offense being? Is it out wide? Is it in the slot? Kind of a do-everything guy? What do these Husker coaches have planned for you?
Well, I'm going to do it all by myself. I can go in the slot, catch passes out the backfield. I can run routes on the outside. I can kick return, punt return. I'm a gadget guy. I'm a speedy gadget guy with good hands and great ability in the open field. So, whatever they're willing to put me at, I'll do it.
Victor, what do you know about Nebraska as far as the program? What's the brand like down in Orlando?
Well, no one really knows much about Nebraska down here. So a lot of things because of Coach Frost and the staff and them informing me and stuff like that. But the brand down here really isn't, they're not really too fond of it. But I've had a coach recently that coached me in high school, and he went to Nebraska, Fabian Washington. He went to Nebraska, and he kind of told me about them too. And, I mean, when he was telling me about them, I never really thought I was going to go there. It's just one of those things that you don't know. So, but now that I'm looking back on it, he was kind of one of the only people that, told me about Nebraska.
We remember Fabian well. Fabian was a first-round guy and was a super high-level defensive back, even started as a freshman at Nebraska. So how far back do your ties with Coach Fabian Washington go?
He coached my sophomore year in high school, and he kind of had, let me know. He was like, I see a lot in you, and I feel like you can go very far with your talent. So he always encouraged me, push myself and be myself, not let anybody tell me that I can't be great. So, yeah, he's very influential with my, he wasn't very influential with my decision, but he's somebody I definitely thought about when I was making my decision.
That's a blast from the past, name-wise. Victor Jones with us, new recruit for Nebraska, wide receiver, 6'2", out of Orlando. So, Victor, a little bit about you and what kind of got you in love with football. What's your background as far as sports? And I know you're a track guy as well, but what made you kind of focus in, and how did you see yourself thriving on the gridiron?
Well, when I was younger, I played basketball was my first sport. So they put me in basketball. I did all right. And my dad, he didn't really want me to play football because he played football, and he didn't know if I really wanted to do it or not. So I finally convinced him to let me play. And he put me on a flag team first. And when I went to the flag team, he coached me a little bit. I just became the starting team. So ever since then, it's just been football every single year. And when I turned about 7, I started running track. Then that helped with my speed a lot too. So I kept with that, and now I'm a big, fast receiver that plays wide receiver. Yeah, I'm a big, fast guy.
So, Victor, tell me a little bit, too, about the connection you've made with Coach Lubick and who else? Coach Becton. Both those coaches were also pretty instrumental, I take it, along with Coach Frost. How's your relationship with them?
We've had a lot of close, like you said, in-depth talks, personal, heart-to-heart talks about, family, Nebraska, how it is up there, team, how they were doing, what they're planning on doing in the future, what they plan on doing with me when I get up there, stuff like that. And it really helped me be at ease and be comfortable with saying that I really want to be a part of the organization.
What are the plans for the future? What's their message about the future?
Well, with me, Coach Frost, man, he want to be one of those guys who used to go vertical down the field. That's something he stressed to me, and he said I might be able to, contribute to the return game when I first get up there. So, I mean, that would be great for me. I really feel like I can make a difference.
Yeah, Victor, I want to ask you about your game. What do you consider to be the strength of your game, and what do you think made you stand out to these Husker coaches? What made them notice you and give you an offer?
I feel like on the field, I feel like as far as my stature and my elusiveness, along with me being able to create an open field and me having strong hands, being aggressive, I kind of all around. So the fact that they're able to notice that, is great for the recruiting staff, because I don't consider myself rated as highly as I should be, but I mean, that's all up to, the major sports platforms like 24/7 Elijah. But, it's hats off to them, because they really, took the time and made me feel like I was one of the very, very high recruits, like 5-star, 4-star. So, that's one of the things that they did.
Yeah, Victor, I want to ask, do you compare your game to any high-level, Power 5 guys, NFL guys? Who do you look at and say, I want to be like him, that's what I want my game to be?
I look at guys like Andrew Hopkins. I look at guys like, obviously, Odell Beckham. I look at guys like Michael Thomas from the Saints. Lanky guys, but also short compressed guys, because, more shorter compressed guys are more elusive versus more stringy guys or very aggressive when the ball comes and play the ball in the air. So I kind of want to be a mix of those two. I don't want to be one or the other. I want to stay, in between and become very good at what I do.
Victor Jones with us, Hail Varsity Radio, newest commit for Nebraska football, wide receiver out of Orlando. So have you had to really continuously drill on route running, kind of the finer points of pass catching, or has that come pretty naturally for you?
Well, that's always something I practice, even when I didn't play receiver as a younger person. So I make sure to keep that in repetition so I don't lose it. And I also work on my speed a lot so I don't lose that as well. Because as you get older and taller and, you gain more muscles, you can lose those things. So I just make sure, I stay on top of that.
Has anybody ever ran you down from behind?
The last time someone ran me down from behind was probably when I was like 10, and I ran like 98 yards, and I was exhausted, and I had caught a pick at safety. So it was very, It was a while ago.
It was a lifetime ago, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Victor, I was doing a little research here, and I'm looking at your 24/7 page compared to a guy that you say you want to look up to and model your game after. That's Michael Thomas. He was ranked as the 124th wide receiver in his class. You're currently ranked as the 126th receiver in your class, and obviously a lot of time for you to move up in the rankings. But when you see like a guy like him and the success that he's had, does it allow you to use that 3-star ranking as a motivation?
Oh, it definitely does, because a lot of the guys that are very, very big stars now with the biggest contracts and the most money coming towards them in the NFL and everything like that, a lot of them were 3 stars or 2 stars or 0 stars. So, I mean, I always look at that and I always take that in consideration and not look down upon myself, you know. I always use it as motivation. Keep me going every single day, yeah.
Victor, we'll get you out of here on this, and it's wonderful to spend some time with you. What do you like about playing in the slot? What do you like playing on the outside? Because Nebraska does a really good job of cross-training their receivers so you can play about any spot.
Well, I want to play it all, honestly. But, I mean, I'm kind of an outside guy. I would say that because of how lengthy I am. But, I mean, if you put me in a slot and you have a guy like one of the tight ends that are a little bit taller than me, put him outside of me, I mean, they won't be able to tell the difference. So, like, I mean, I just want to stay versatile and make sure I can be everywhere on the field so they can use me at any time they really need to use me.
We'll have a few more thoughts here from Victor Jones Jr. Our interview continues with him next segment. Want to remind you about your friends at West Blue Realty, westbluerealty.com. Are you moving in 2021? And I know there's a lot of houses for sale. Maybe folks are looking for that next house in the Lincoln or surrounding area. Communities all around the capital city. West Blue Realty is where you need to go. No better than Tom Luby or Kelly Hofsnyder. Both guys make it happen. Give Tom a shout at 402-540-3768. Kelly Hofsnyder, call Kelly at 402-202-2312, 1120 K Street, Suite 200 in Lincoln. westbluerealty.com. More with Victor Jones next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. More with Husker recruit Victor Jones here on Hail Varsity. Take me through your season, or the last time you got to play. What have you been dealing with from a COVID standpoint down in Florida and specifically Orlando? I mean, what restrictions have there been, or have there been any? And have you been able to do as much football and track as you like, or are you excited to be able to do that sooner rather than later?
Well, I'm excited about it now because things are starting to open up more. But it cut into my track season last year. I didn't really get to run my events like I wanted to because I was developing myself more. And I was finally, that was when I was finally getting back healthy again, because in football season I was a little beat up, a little banged up, so I was getting back healthy going into the track season. When I got healthy and I started running, probably 2 weeks later, they just shut everything down, so they kind of cut off my track season. But as far as my football season this past year, we had some restrictions as far as fans, and they cut I think 2 or 3 of our games, so it restricted us, but not too much. I still enjoyed my season, and I still had a lot of fun.
Have you even gotten a chance to see the Nebraska campus? I know with COVID, it's shut down official visits and stuff. I mean, how did that affect your recruitment?
Well, I didn't get to take any of my visits yet, so yeah, that definitely affected that. But honestly, as far as what I've seen over the internet and everything like that, and I know they're going to get a new facility around the time that I'm coming in next year. So, I mean, all that plays in. I plan on taking a visit this June. We don't have an exact date on that, but depending on the pandemic and how everything goes with the release date for when we can actually go up to the schools, it should be in June.
Last thought on the facility. What do you know about the facility that maybe we don't?
I know that they said it's going to have the biggest weight room in the country, so I'm ready for that.
All right, so that's on the horizon. We know it's in the plans, but maybe that's moving forward a little bit quicker. Victor, best to you. We'll do this again. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Good to chat with Victor Jones Jr., a kid that's really talented, good film, and pretty versatile. And talk about his speed and his track background. The Fabian Washington connection, which is really cool because Fabian was a standout and played with one of our earlier guests, Jay Moore at Nebraska. But if you can get a guy that's versatile enough and can go slot and is good side to side as he is north to south, count me in, right? It's not real easy to find guys that are that versatile and that talented, that have great quickness and agility, with even though you're a receiver, but the lateral stuff versus the straight end speed, and you got both.
Yeah, and one of the things I love is if you go watch his film on Huddle, there's not many of them in there, but there are highlights of his blocking prowess. Mm-hmm. That's not something that guys usually highlight on their Huddle film. I think that's really good to see because, I mean, we've heard the adage, no block, no rock, but he's also got some wheels on him. And what I like is he's not all about make you miss. He's also got a stiff arm in him. He can run through arm tackles, and I like his mentality of using his ranking as motivation. I mean, not comparing himself to Michael Thomas, but he's saying
it's a similar setup with what you asked him about. Just kind of, a lesser known name at this point, but it's all about what you do when you get to college. So, and he's been patient with having football and track cut short, like a lot of kids due to COVID. So nice get for Nebraska. And Coach Frost liked what he saw in Victor Jones Jr. from an early age. I mean, this goes back to 9th, 10th grade, where both were on each other's radar from the vicinity in Orlando. So pretty cool. All right, college basketball, the championship game will be Monday. We'll be down at Longwells. We invite you down for Championship Monday. Hail Varsity Roadshow 4 to 6. Come down, hang out for that, get qualified during the show for Chris Stapleton tickets, Salt Dog tickets, Jet Splash cards, gift cards to other restaurants, and yes, the grand prize following the game, a 4-pack of home seats to the Royals for 2021. You want to get to a live sporting event. I want to get to a live sporting event. Your chance to go see the Royals, courtesy of Hail Varsity and ESPN Lincoln. So, Longwell's where you need to be. We'll be there 4 to 6 for the show. And then we'll be down there, Willie J, Elijah Herbel, and everybody going to be down there watching whoever gets there. Who is going to get there? The Final Four down to the Title II. Houston or Baylor. Steak and a beer. We split last time.
Yeah, that we did.
So there was no winner. But you've got Houston getting 5 right now. I think Baylor's too good. I think they're too talented from three-point land. Houston, it's funny because you look at UCLA, their studs the transfer from Kentucky. Houston, their studs a transfer from Kansas. And it's interesting. Kelvin Sampson's a really awesome coach, right? And there's familiarity because of Sampson's time in the Big 12. And, of course, you've got Baylor and Coach Drew, and a lot's been written about and talked about here. Slight edge here with the matchup predictor. Baylor 52% likely for victory. Houston at 47.7%. Grimes is so good for Houston. But I'll tell you what, them Bears are so balanced. They just shoot better. They just shoot better from three-point land. Houston's trek getting by Oregon State, blowing a big lead, outlasting Syracuse, narrowly surviving Rutgers. So, no, impressive for Houston to be where they're at. And, of course, Baylor, no slouch themselves with where they're at in their program. And they've been knocking on the door, man. They've been to Elite Eights. They've been to Sweet 16s. And they are now in the first Final Four for the first time since 1950. So we'll see. You like Houston? Do you like Baylor?
Oh, I like Houston to cover. I don't like Houston to win.
Okay. So you think it's going to be like one of these 83-80 type games, or you think it can get if it gets that high, I mean, Baylor probably covers, don't you think? It's got to be lower scoring for Houston.
What I'll say is Houston, I don't know if we've seen a full 40 minutes of basketball from them yet in the NCAA tournament. They've tended to go on cruise control a little bit late in the second half. Oregon State, they let them back in the game, and they finally had to put the foot back on the gas pedal at the end of that one. So
it's hard to do.
Yeah, so I think in the Final Four, we finally get a full 40 minutes of basketball from Houston. There's going to be energy because, one game away from the championship game. But I still think Baylor is too good. They shoot the ball too well. I think it's going to be a close one. Give me Baylor 71, Houston 67, a close cover for Houston, but Baylor gets the win and advances to national.
I think Baylor
game.
covers the number. Give me Baylor 77-70 over Houston. Probably too many points, but I'm going to go that route. I'm also going to, I don't know, I thought USC would hang around a little bit closer than they did against Gonzaga. Gonzaga was...
This Gonzaga team looks like a juggernaut.
They're awesome. They are great. I love UCLA, and I think Johnny J has been playing great ball. He's been so much fun to watch. I just think Gonzaga has too much. That number, that spread is 14.
But Gonzaga's covered every game of the tournament so far.
No, I know they have. And UCLA shouldn't be here. They shouldn't even have been in the tournament, you ask some people.
I tell you what, 3 minutes to think on it, and we'll give our predictions after the break.
Sounds good. We'll wind down a Friday edition. Hail Varsity continues, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity Radio. Now, Hail Varsity Radio weekend back tomorrow morning. Myself and Mark Cranack will dive in, get you ready for the Final Four. Got a tea time rocked for tomorrow. Fired up about that. So you've had a quick break to think on Gonzaga UCLA. I hope it's not a beatdown. I'd love to see Mccarron get to the championship game in UCLA. It's not that I hate Gonzaga. I think they're really awesome and talented, but this would be kind of fun with UCLA. They've kind of captured me. I never thought I'd root for UCLA ever in my life, but I kind of dig them. I hope they win. They are not going to cover, nor are they going to win.
No, yeah, I'm glad you got there eventually, because during the break, I was thinking it's best to not overthink this. I think Gonzaga has already beaten two teams in the tournament that are better than UCLA, in Creighton and USC. I think both those teams would beat UCLA in a head-to-head matchup. And, well, I thought the same thing, that Michigan was a better team than UCLA, and I was wrong there.
It was a rock fight, though, man.
Yeah, I don't think I'm wrong here. I think Gonzaga wins. I think Gonzaga wins pretty comfortably, somewhere in the 16 to 18-point range. That's why I'm thinking, give me Gonzaga 81. Give me UCLA 64. So it'll be a somewhat close cover, but not actually that close. If UCLA were to cover this, I think it's a backdoor cover.
I think UCLA can keep it watchable for the first half. You're just going to have one of those runs, those explosions by Gonzaga. And you're going to need... UCLA's got some dudes. The thing that's really cool that I think we can see moving forward with Mccarron, and what a nice hire that was, is you're going to get like the Hollywood talent. You're going to get some really big time dudes. What's their mentality? What's their grit level? I know Husker baseball gets rocking here in a little bit, and they've got their own slogan going, right? Gritty over pretty. Do you have that with some kids that have been coddled 5-star dudes, and they will dive on the floor? They will take getting screamed at by little man Mick, okay, and they play for him because what he's got them doing is working and winning, and now they're in the Final Four. Michael Lewis, former Nebraska basketball assistant on that staff. So there's a little bit of local rooting interest.
I'll root for UCLA. Mm-hmm. My problem is they're just going to have to build probably a 15-point lead in the first half to be able to withstand whatever I'm sure Gonzaga would bring at them if Gonzaga were to find themselves down late in the first half. So UCLA's got to play a perfect game to beat Gonzaga, and Gonzaga would have to play a bad game to beat UCLA.
It's happening. Gonzaga's not really played a bad game. The thing is they don't get disinterested, really. So we'll probably end up with Baylor and Gonzaga Monday night. Longwell's where you're going to be watching it. We hope to see you there as Championship Monday Roadshow with Hale Varsity. And again, plenty of prizes and goodies as we sit in down there. And then once we're finished up, the party really begins, getting you ready for the title game. Talk to you in the morning, 7 a.m. weekend edition podcast. Find us, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify. Give us a review. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you manana.